What's up? We're here for our second take of this live video with you guys. I had a bad connection. Let's pray for a better connection. But welcome to our team training. Today we have Mollie Hayes joining us to continue our top seller series. Mollie is the top seller in Oklahoma. And so I'm so excited to have you here to pick your brain. And Mollie's going to be talking about how to set non-negotiables for your business. And so before you jump in, Mollie, will you just share a teeny bit about your journey?
Yes. So kind of,
and then
okay. So I started with Color Street in August of 2018, and it was the conference in 2019 in Orlando where, I guess introduce myself first. My name is Mollie Hayes, and I'm an executive director on Team Nailed It. So jump forward to conference. I was there with my enroller, Jess Shelburne, who is Presidential Circle and also a senior executive director. And she got this pretty blue Oklahoma sash. And I was like, why did you get a sash? I want a sash. And come to find out that they gave those sashes to everyone who was a top seller in their state. And since Oklahoma is like one of the smaller states, the majority of our team, or I guess the majority of people who sell in Oklahoma end up being on either our team or Polished Queens with Allison Steed. And I found out that I was only like a couple of $100 behind Jess. And so I looked at her and I was like, taking that sash from you. So it really started this friendly competition, if you will. Yeah. But I knew in that moment, if I was going to maintain the pace that I was running, if I was going to continue being consistent, I had to really figure out like, what are the things that I'm going to be consistent in and show up regularly in order to sell Color Street and make money.
Yes, so I love this topic because it's just, you got to show me your, like, I love this quote. So show me your minimums and I'll show you your results. Like you've got to have some basic stuff that you're consistent with. So we can't wait to hear what those things are.
Absolutely. For me, there's kind of like, I'm going to walk through kind of the 5 steps of like how I created my non-negotiables. And really it starts with kind of your mindset. So it's really important to me to focus on what's important and not necessarily urgent. So the important things are things like posting consistently in your VIP so that Facebook doesn't, the algorithms don't like shut you down and nobody sees your posts.
Right.
The urgent things are things like shipping. You get a few orders from your stash and you realize it's building up and it feels like that has to be done right away, when really if it gets done tomorrow, what business is getting an order and shipping it within the hour that they receive the order? Like that's not realistic. The other thing is noticing that the majority of the leaders within Color Street all do the same things to be successful. We post on our personal pages. We post in our VIP groups consistently. We are doing something to grow our business. So parties, vendor events, getting samples into hands, those things, and then leading our teams. And within kind of those 4 genres, they're so broad. Like there's so many things that you could do in each of those areas. And with this business, to be successful, you have to be consistent and you have to be resilient. And yes. Because like, I mean, I had jobs before this business, and it's so much easier to show up when you know it's expected of you. Well, with Color Street, you're your own boss. And when you sit down to work that day and you realize that the boss didn't make any plans for the day, you kind of just end up like scrolling Facebook for an hour and you've wasted so much time.
Yes, no one's there telling you what to do. And so you have to tell yourself what to do, which is harder.
Yes. And I personally, like at the beginning of my business, it was easy for me to sit down and say, okay, what am I going to do today? Because I worked from home and knew I had a few hours to work with, where this became very important to me. I recently found out I was pregnant, and first timer was hard, like took me down. So So I went from working 3 to 4 hours a day to now it's like you get 45 minutes and then you're going to lay down again. And so I had to be super strict with the things that I was working on.
Yes.
And so this is kind of the second part is kind of making your list. So when you start this process, pay attention to the things that you are doing. What are you doing intentionally that is an IPA, an income producing activity, the things that make you money? And write all of those things down. So I would say for probably really how I stumbled upon it was I led a boot camp in my team page and realized that over the course of the 4 weeks, I was encouraging them to do the same things. And that's how I realized like these are the things that I do consistently. I'm leading my team to do them consistently. So like these are truly the important things.
Right.
And then figuring out like, okay, how do I fit in the inconsistent things like parties is kind of where that goes. But once I made my list and I started with the boot camp list and added kind of some of the other things that were important to me and how I run my business. But then I asked myself the question, is this effective and is this comfortable? And so everything that was effective, meaning it worked, it did what it was supposed to do, got a star next to it. And if it was comfortable, I put a heart next to it. And because those things, they're not necessarily bad things. There are, I guess, strengths that every person has that can help them be successful in this business. But if you are finding that every Wednesday you have to write a business blessing and it takes you 2 hours because you hate writing business blessings, don't put 4 of those hard tasks all in one day because you're just setting yourself up to fail. So do something first that is comfortable and you're successful in, that then kind of like gives you that confidence boost of like, I accomplished something for today. I feel good about it. Okay, now I'm going to do the hard thing that like I have to like push myself to do.
Yes.
The third thing, kind of the third.
Too many of those things that we hate, that we dread, you're
Oh,
to avoid everything. You know what I mean? Like when you have a list, you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to do any of this. And then you're like, I know, I'll find a whole bunch of messages I need to respond to. And those are not producing activities. And then you've got this, I love the idea of kind of spreading out those kind of painful things. And it reminds me of like the rock. Do you remember that rock visual where it's like, put the big rocks in first.
Oh, yes.
And then you can put the sand in the cracks instead of like doing the same, putting the sand in first, which is going to fill up half the bowl. And then you try to put big rocks in and they don't fit, you know?
Yeah. And one thing, we use this analogy on my team a lot, that like for a lot of people on my team who work, Color Street fits in the cracks. And so a lot of times I will tell people, do the comfortable things in the cracks because you can do them without really thinking about it.
There are no.
Then when you sit down to work on your business, that's when you do the hard things because you're being intentional, you're making time for it, rather than just hoping it gets done on the fly, because that's never going to happen.
Right. And can I add, I also think time of day is important too. Like, I mean, studies show that at night we're a little more drained and we don't have as much motivation. And so if you like do those like harder things earlier in the day, I mean, maybe you're a night owl and you like have all sorts of motivation and drive at night, and that might work for you. But like, try to say like do those. I tell my kids, do the worst first. You got to do the worst first because then you can fill in the cracks with the other stuff. But get that stuff out of the way.
Yeah, and know how you function. Like, do I need that boost of getting something done first, or do I need to force myself to get the hard thing done and then move to the thing? Like,
sure,
almost like, like test it, figure out which one works better for you. And we kind of are already talking about the third thing, which is being realistic about the time that you can commit. And so for me at the beginning, I had the freedom to commit time. And so it was, even though I have all this time to put towards it, I'm still going to be very intentional about what I'm doing. And then because when it got to the point where I had to cut back, I had to say like, okay, what can realistically be done in this time? And that mentality of if you work a full-time job, have kids, are running all over the place, like what are the cracks that you can use, sitting in the pickup line, random things like that, knowing that like, okay, these are the things I need to get done today. Realistically, what is the time that I have to commit to it?
Yeah, totally.
Um,
It's interesting.
and then those things,
it's really interesting too when you do have times like, for example, you're pregnant and you're just only have so much energy. And like last month I had a lot of health issues and, and to realize what is truly essential and what is not really an income producing activity. Like because I obviously I'm not going to just not work my business,
right.
But when I was really having a lot of health issues, it was like there were so many things that I was like, wait, that's not even essential. Why am I adding this? Why was this even on my plate to begin with? Like I focused on the things that were the most important, the most essential for my business, and everything else had to fall off during that time. And it was actually really interesting to see, and then see what was, no, this isn't really important and I need to continue.
Yeah. And even some of the things that are important, they don't necessarily have to be done every day or every week. And I had somebody the other day tell me that she moved all of her shipping to Fridays. She only does shipping on Fridays. And then when she sends customer appreciation, she was doing that almost daily. Like as orders came in, she was packaging up something to send to them. And then she changed it to monthly. And so once a month, she gets her kids to help her. They all sit at the table. It's like a family activity.
I love that.
That shift, one, stopped taking her away from her family, and two, gave her additional support where it's like this person ordered 3 times. So like, one of the kids gets to pick 3 items to put in their bag. So I think that like there is room for flexibility, and that's the beautiful part of like when you know what is important, you can then figure out, okay, in this season, what is the best way to make it happen. Because the other important thing about time is I think that a lot of us, we have the New Year's resolutions and we sit down and we think about our lives and goals and all of that in January, but it's so important I do it quarterly. I sit down and I look at the last 3 months and I say like, okay, same questions as above. What was effective? What was comfortable? What is just not working? And those things that aren't working, give yourself permission to change, to move, to adapt. Because you're not chained to anything, really.
Yeah. And I love the idea. And I started doing my shipping only once a week because it was like neat and it felt like it was constantly hanging over my head to be like, oh my gosh, I gotta ship. But if it's like, oh, I don't even have to worry about that or think about that until Friday.
Yes.
And same with even, you can do this, I did a live video about this last week about even scheduling your posts. Like it's kind of awesome to just choose one day to like focus on that one thing, and then you don't have to worry about it all the other days. It's it's like mentally, it feels mentally light, which
and it's good on both sides because then it allows you the ability to communicate expectations with your customers so that when you say, I'm doing bundles on Monday and I will be shipping them on Friday. So they're not messaging you on Friday being like, why haven't I gotten my bundle? And it's like, well, I haven't even packed it up yet. So it just creates clear expectations for you and for your customers. So then kind of the fourth thing is once you've looked at your list that you've made, once you've thought about the time that you have to commit, it's what we talked about a little bit earlier. It's taking the important things and making sure that they have a place kind of on the list. So like this is something that I shared with my team, and it literally is at most 3 tasks for a day that take a maximum of 45 minutes to an hour. And so some examples are scheduling 4 VIP posts. If you schedule 4 VIP posts Monday through Friday, that's 20 posts. So you have 3 posts every day. On Sundays, I only post twice because Sunday mornings are kind of a wash for me. So that way I truly get a weekend. Things like posting on your personal page, contacting 3 potential stylists, like directly messaging them, contacting 3 potential hostesses. So, and there are seasons where, that contacting 3 hosts becomes 10 hosts because I'm, needing a bit more engagement. But if it's on my list, I know what's expected of me. I know I cannot ignore it. And if I skip it this week, I'm going to have to double up next week. So I might as well just get it done. It's really my mentality. So it's like, figuring out, like, on these days that I have scheduling VIP posts, contacting potential hosts. And then, like, for me, contacting potential hosts is easy. Parties is really how I've grown my business. And so at this point, like, I told my team the other day, I was like, throughout September and October, I probably messaged 300 people and maybe got 12 that said yes. So, like, that's a lot of no's and like a 3% return on investment. But, like, those parties are those 10 people, those 10 parties are, all of my parties for October or November. So it's worth it. And I've planted seeds that, like, I got a lot of people who are like, maybe in the new year, like, I know people want to take advantage of the holidays, but, like, I'd rather just wait until January comes. And it's like, cool.
It's just a no for now.
Yes, exactly. So there are seasons where I kind of go a bit more, like, aggressive about certain things. But because these tasks that I've set for every day are such a small time frame, it allows me the flexibility of, if I have a party this week, I'm not freaking out because I have to shove scheduling a party into my schedule. Is a beautiful thing, in my opinion.
One thing I love the idea of just focusing on your business, for, like, just committing to focus on it for, like, even 20 minutes to an hour a day. Because, like, I was just talking to a new stylist and I was like, can you commit to 20 minutes a day? Because I feel like you can commit to almost anything for 20 minutes a day. And she was like, yeah, I mean, sometimes even an hour feels like a lot,
Yeah.
like a solid hour, right? But 20 minutes focusing on anything, any goal.
Yeah.
I feel like that's so doable, And so if you get overwhelmed by, like, all these tasks, sometimes just setting an alarm and focusing on it for 20 minutes, like, you get so much done in 20 minutes.
Yeah, I will do whatever I can do in 20 minutes and then I have permission to walk away. Like, that's huge. And yeah, I love that idea. Okay. And then so really the last part of it is then tracking and adjusting. So you've made this list, you're working on it. I adapted because I needed parties and I wasn't getting the amount of yeses that I typically get. And so I had to adapt in that season. So part of that is what you said, yes, taking 20 minutes to be intentional to work your business, but also then, a few months from now, are you taking 20 minutes to sit and reevaluate what you've been doing? Because I think that, like, sometimes this business can feel like you're on a train headed for nowhere and you're just like, I don't know how to stop this thing. And so it's like, I don't know where we're going. I don't know why we're going so fast. What's happening?
Yeah.
Stopping to take inventory of, like, what are the things that are draining me? What are the things that I'm doing that aren't necessary? Like, it's just as important. I say quarterly, but sometimes there are seasons where, like, I think this current season of, like, going back to school, COVID, election, everyone's overwhelmed. And I found myself almost, like, bi-weekly, like every other week, stopping and being like, how did we do? How did we get through these 2 weeks? Like, and that's personal. It's personal, it's business, it's all of it. And you can always, like, I think that even when you're feeling like you're on this freight train, sometimes it's good. Sometimes we're moving, we're making progress, we're doing good things. I like where we're headed. Great. but I also have all these other ideas. And having a place where you can write them down and go back to them later is important, because I think we get to a point where those things that we've been doing aren't working anymore. And it's like, I don't have any ideas. I don't know what to do now. And if you haven't kind of kept inventory of those moments of brilliance that you have in the shower, like those could be, wasted. So have something in place where I know a few weeks from now, I'm going to sit down and reevaluate everything I'm doing. So I'm going to write down this idea and like a brief outline of like how I would do it. And if I need to come back to it, great. And the crazy thing is, what I've found is that a lot of times those ideas aren't things that I end up using, but I suggest them to team members because they're struggling with something that I potentially thought could be a problem. And it's a great solution for them. So sometimes it's not even about my business. It's about the people that I'm leading and the people that, are joining my team and having inspiration for them.
Totally.
And then really kind of my last point is using your resources and being strategic. So things like doing customer appreciation once a month, using resources like if a leader above you has created a launch party template, don't feel like you have to recreate the wheel. Like if it's a solid template, like Monica shared that template and people are still just like funneling people into that group because it's a good, solid template. Yeah,
that's great.
So I think that, between writing all of your stuff down, almost like a brain purge, like get it all down on paper, figure out what time you're working with, and then, strategically choosing like how you're going to do it. I feel like can really set you up for success, because when you get to a point and everybody has these seasons, like you just had one, I just had one, of what we were working with is no longer an option. And so without having kind of an outline, you don't really know where to cut back. And so you kind of stop doing everything. And it's like, that's not acceptable.
Right. We don't want to be all or nothing with our business. Right. So it's, like, what are my non-negotiables and what things can I cut back on? And I love that you said, that it's important to track, because tracking reveals truth. Yeah. And what you measure, you can manage. And so it is good to like reflect and look back and say, did that work? Is this working? Am I having fun doing this? I talked about that last week. Just like, is this bringing me joy? Because if you have fun, if you're excited about something, that's contagious, and it's just I feel like you'll succeed even if if it's a untraditional path.
Yeah, but, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that I just love this whole idea of really focusing on what's important versus what's urgent. Because I think I've done this myself in my years of business, and I've seen many women do it before, where we become reactive instead of proactive in our business, where we wake up to all these messages and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed. I have all these messages, blah, blah, blah. We're responding to everybody else's goals and everybody else's to-do list. And then at the end of the day, we're like, what the heck did I do? Because I didn't get any of my stuff done on mine, And so when you have these non-negotiables, you're like, no, I got to focus on my, I got to be active or proactive on my non-negotiables, and then I can be reactive. So thank you so much for joining us, Mollie. This is a great discussion and so many good things for everyone to remember to help them succeed and be an amazing seller like you are. So we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.